Hello, my name is Pelien and I am a freshman, soon to be sophomore at the University of Colorado at Denver, and I am a film and television major. And today we're going to be talking about some of my old films that I made in my short career as a filmmaker, and probably just go through kind of my style and how I've evolved and where I'm trying to end up and my hopes of the future and stuff like that. So come along! Okay, so this is my very first film. I co-directed it, which is something that I'm not really used to. I'm used to being a cinematographer now, so this was really cool not to be the cinematographer, although it was hard because I wanted to control everything, so I stepped in as a production designer mostly. That was just one of my very first experiences with film. Getting the chance to make a film with all these really amazing young filmmakers was great. The story is basically about these girls at a sleepover. They are trying to get revenge on each other. It was shot really well. This was one of my favorite scenes to edit. This was like one of the first experiences I had editing. I also did the sound, which was really fun. I used to be a violinist. I slowed down the music of me playing awful, out of tune notes. I didn't do much of the directing because I think halfway through the project I realized I don't like directing. This is the first time I ever used a special effect and it failed miserably. If you look there, you can see part of her hair. It's still there. So we didn't do quite a good enough job, but I've learned from it. So yeah, it's really like gross sounding because it's violin. So yeah, I'm not a huge sound person, but I'm starting to get into it a lot more. This is, I think, technically the second film I ever made. I'm not sure, I can't really remember. This film, I kind of tried to direct, but I mostly became the editor on it. So this was like a pretty big deal for me because it had a lot of really great opportunities for me to edit. I think it was really fun and it turned out good because I got so many opportunities to edit. So it was kind of a quirky little thing about like how YouTubers will gain like a cult following, so we kind of made a satire out of it.
Sit back and relax while you watch this demonstration. Try eliminating someone from your life who's causing you stress.
Okay, anyways, so that's the essence of it. To edit and find really cool like footage, like B-roll. Most of it I found either archived or caught it myself. And this was also the first time I like ever acted, really. Oh yeah, here's the rest of
Like a
that.
spring rain. Whatever the reason you have, this will be an enlightening experience for all of you.
So this is when I actually was in film school. All the past films that I've shown were before film school, so didn't really have a concept of like framing or composition of frame, and a lot of it wasn't like in my control, and this was the very first time I kind of had a lot of control over it, which was nice in like an academic setting. A lot of my professors actually really didn't like this assignment. My one professor just really did not like it. I took the critiques and I've learned from it. Now I've learned that I shouldn't do as much camera movement. Yeah, it was basically where we had to get 20 different shots of things. I just had to get like 40 instead because I got the fancy cameras and I was like, why not? And I had my beautiful friends model for me. So yeah, this is one of my favorite stills from it just because I think they're framed really nicely. Trying to move up to using the better cameras, we have to get certified and stuff, so hopefully in the future the films will look much higher quality. I'm kind of just trying to practice camera movement and focusing. Honestly, this was just like learning the basics. So, this is a film that I made this semester with my Production 1 class, which is all the freshmen. They've never produced a film before, so it's kind of like a first time for everybody, unless you're more experienced. This film wasn't the best. Honestly, I didn't love it because the story it wasn't very interesting, and I wish I had had more time and more of a influence on like shooting and stuff like that. But I think that's something that as a photographer or as a cinematographer, you need to give that creative freedom to the director. So it was hard for me to do that, and I am a control freak, so it is really hard for me to give up some responsibility. This is Premiere. This is how we edit. I have heard Final Cut is better, but I don't think it is. The plot of the story is basically this girl who finds out she's pregnant and she lives in Louisiana, so it's really hard to get a abortion. We dealt with a lot of hard topics. With a lot of my films, I like to kind of go into some darker stuff. She basically heads to a satanic temple ultimately to get an abortion, which is so grim, but I think it turned out really cool for what it was. I wanted to keep the lighting and stuff like that pretty dark. I thought this was a really cool shot. I'm doing the refrigerator. I kind of wanted to try to get multiple angles of this scene just because it was so dynamic between the two characters. We got all these decorations. This was a really cool sequence to edit and shoot as well because it was super, as I said, dynamic between the two characters, and they were moving a lot, and I wanted to kind of keep it centered on this character on the left, but also trying to make sure that the lines of the other character were included and important. So in this shot, we decided to try to make her look like the Virgin Mary, kind of encapsulated by the decorations and then the lights. A lot of times it's much more work than you think, even for a shot that only gets shown for maybe 2 seconds. Sound design is also incredibly important because this sound on this wasn't great. This film was definitely a really great experience for me because I learned so much about production and how everything really works and how professional sets work, and this in addition to what I was working on at the same time. I got to learn from both sets and kind of use what I learned from another set here, and then I think it made it much more successful, and I was able to get a lot more shots than I hoped. It turned out a lot better than we thought. Even though it is a student film and it was a production one, I think it turned out pretty well. It's part of filmmaking that you just have to accept, and that it's not always going to be really easy and straightforward. You're not always going to get along with who you work with, but you're kind of carrying this baby, and if you drop the baby, you're kind of out of loss. You have to finish it off, and you have to just get the baby to grow up. This is a film that I worked on as a production assistant, and I was also the assistant of the director. So my professor, who worked in Hollywood for over 40 years, he was the AD on Dexter, he worked on the old Star Wars movies. He is a professor now, and so he wanted to use this film as like a teaching tool for his students in an advanced acting class workshop that I helped him create this semester. He kind of did a lot of newer things because of COVID, and he just wanted to experiment with the really great actors that we had this semester. A lot of the lines in this were pretty cheesy. It was a pretty cheesy script, but I think it turned out really good. It's actually still in production. I haven't gotten a final cut of it yet. We've seen a cut, but they've sent it off to LA, so I don't know whenever that will come back. But just the colors that we were able to include with the main actress, she didn't even dye her hair for the film. It was already blue, which worked really well because I wanted to do more of a film noir type of look and include blues, more of a modern film noir instead of black and white. And a lot of the costume design was really well thought out and planned. I even went with the director. We went shopping multiple times, which goes to show how important production design is and how costuming really can make or break a story. Once you pay attention to all those little things, it really just comes together.
I got a blaze.
It was a pretty lame line, I'm not gonna lie. When we watched the rough cut that we got, it actually turned out to be really funny. Even though I wasn't the cinematographer of this, I learned a lot from the cinematographer who was working on it. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he kind of led me through his thought process of how he set things up. And I was able to work with him along with all the other assistant camera operators on set, helping out putting lights up exactly where they needed to be. This light right there, if we this tiny light right here, it's this light right here. But we had to change out the light bulb and put a dimmer on the outlet. These are what we call in film dailies, so it's just all the footage compiled together so the editors can kind of put together the story easier. The set design of this was really cool. I'm pretty proud of the work we did on this film. It is definitely the best experience I've had working on a film, and I've learned so much from it. Experiences like this, getting to work with really experienced people, are, I think, a lot more important than film students think it is. They don't often take advantage of all the opportunities that you can have. So that is all my work up to date. I'm working on a couple of other things, but they're still in production, so we'll wait on those. In the future, I look forward to working on a lot more feature films and hopefully working more as an AC, which is assistant camera, or working as a DP, director of photography, because those are the main kind of subjects that I'm interested in and where I want to go into and what I would like a career in. I definitely want to be a cinematographer or a director of photography. The industry is so different nowadays, and a lot has changed, but a lot has stayed the same. So it's hard for a woman, and it's hard for filmmakers in general who aren't in LA or New York to get a chance to work on bigger things or do a lot with film other than just having it be a side hobby. It's a lot harder to transform it into a career and not just a hobby. We are hoping for a lot more kind of opportunities for bigger stuff like this in the future.